Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. And today is Monday Fun Day.
I ain't stop what you're doing, cause I'm about to ruin the image of me that you're used to. I look money, a king bee making honey, see? Deep state, I hope you're ready for me. Now gather round, I'm the new sheriff in town. All my people rise up and stand your ground. Now drink up all the Diet Coke you got on your shelf. So just let me introduce myself, my name is Trump D. I like my mashed potatoes lumpy. Fake news, oh how I like to punk thee. That little sniper on the slope tin, he took a shot but he missed me. I don't fall, y'all, I'm like the ever ready bunny. Still going strong and spunky. So put on your big boy pants. Come on, let's do the dance.
The Trumpy dance is your chance to do the Trump.
Come on, do the Trumpy Trump. Come on and do the Trumpy Trump. Check me out, y'all. We do the Trumpy Trump. Just watch me do the Trumpy Trump. Yeah. Do you know what I'm doing? We do the Trumpy Trump. Come on, everybody do the Trumpy Trump. It's time to do the Trumpy Trump. Yeah. My favorite dish is a double Big Mac, cause I find it quite delicious. I eat up all your fries cause it's scrumptious. Hey yo, my squirrel, Peanut, are you listening? Yeah, they took you out like a rat. Why they treat you like that? It never would've happened, not with me. And yeah, safe to assume the communist agenda gonna end up in a tomb. Whoa, crazies, I always will evade thee. You never catch me cause you're just too lazy. Now join me and my homie fans, cause this is how we do the dance.
The Trumpy dance is your chance to do the Trump.
Come on, do the Trumpy Trump. Come on and do the Trumpy Trump. Check me out, y'all. We do the Trumpy Trump. Just watch me do the Trumpy Trump. Yeah. Do you know what I'm doing? We do the Trumpy Trump. Come on, everybody do the Trumpy Trump. It's time to do the Trumpy Trump. Yeah.
Now, how can you not have fun doing the Trumpty Trump, right? Well, some people will find a way to not have fun because, well, Trump derangement syndrome is a thing. People just, they don't like him. They don't like that he's fun. They don't like that people have fun with Donald Trump being president. In their eyes, because Donald Trump is president, everybody's supposed to be like crazy depressed. I don't know. I'm just not. Maybe it's just me. Maybe something's wrong with me. I don't know. I'm getting the impression that if you're tuning into this show and you tune in on a regular basis, that, well, you're probably not too depressed either. I'm thinking that you're probably right there, right along with me. So guess we're going to have a good time, right? Right. All right. Well, Mikey is not here today. Unfortunately, once again, off working, but that's okay because I'm here, you're here, and we're going to have a good time nonetheless, talking about the news of the day. And there is plenty to talk about as we all know, when Donald Trump is president, the news cycle does not stop. It doesn't stop for the evening. It doesn't stop for the weekend. It doesn't stop for the Sabbath. It doesn't stop for nothing. The news cycle just keeps on rolling because Donald Trump. So let's go ahead and do like we usually do, and we'll start off first and foremost by giving a quick shout out to our sponsors. We're going to start with the folks over at Hitman Industries. They make rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase at any length. All you have to do is go check them out at hitmanindustries.net. If you purchased an AR in the last few years, there's a good chance you already have one of their barrels. Why not get another one? So whether you're looking to do a brand new build or you're looking to rebarrel your old rifle, start your project, start your journey, start your experience with Hitman Industries. Then we've got the folks over at the California Republican Assembly working to help elect conservatives at all levels of government, from school board all the way up to President of the United States. Ronald Reagan once referred to CRA as the conscience of the Republican Party. If you want to find out why, visit their website, cragop.org. That's cragop.org. Go there, check them out, find out why. Because here's the deal, folks. If you want to be a part of California's future today, you got to join CRA. And then we've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market. That would be at hawgholsters.com. That's HAWG holsters.com. I know, spelled kind of funny, right? Well, it stands for Helping Americans Wear Guns. That's right. Go to their website, hawgholsters.com. Check them out. I promise you will like what you see. And when you go to buy your holster, use the discount code The Rundown. All caps, no spaces, one word, just like it is right up there. And get your hog holster on discount. That's how much they like helping Americans wear guns. And then finally, if you have a group, if you have a club, if you are the purchasing agent for your unit or your department, you need to check out uscombatgear.com. This is a place where you can find all things tactical except the gun. Once again, they specialize in group sales. They have competitive prices. They have a huge selection and the best customer service out there on the market. Trust me, you want to go there. You want to check them out. Check out uscombatgear.com, the place where you can find all things tactical except the gun. And then also wanted to remind you, if you're watching the show live, that would be 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. I wanted to remind you that, we're taking your comments. I'm like following your comments right over here. I'm looking for them. If I, whether you're giving a shout out to let us know where you're watching the program fun, maybe you're giving a shout out to me or Mike. Maybe you just want to comment on whatever it is that we're talking about. We encourage you. Go ahead. In fact, you don't even have to agree with us. So, look, we would love if you would disagree with us. All we care about is that it's interesting. And it's always more interesting when you disagree with us because then it gives us the opportunity to mock you.
Oh, wow. Was that a mockingbird?
Man, is that a mockingbird? Is that a mockingbird?
That's right. It once again gives us the opportunity to mock you. Or as Mike would say, we will mock you. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into today's topics right here. Let's start off. Over the weekend, there was a protest at the home of New York Mayor Zoran Mamdani, and it was now admittedly it was a protest by a group of white supremacists, and I feel very comfortable calling them that. This is not a group of people who are just pro-American. I think that there is enough behind these folks. There's enough of a history to know, yeah, these guys are a little bit more than just pro-America. They're they got some white supremacy tendencies, shall we say? Anyway, at this event, there were a couple of individuals who were inspired by ISIS videos to attack this crowd, and they wound up hurling or throwing improvisationalized devices, or basically bombs, homemade bombs, at the racist protesters. And here's what Mamdani had to say about it.
Us were home at the time. This was a vile protest rooted in white supremacy entitled "Stop the Islamic Takeover of New York City." I'm the first Muslim mayor of our city. Anti-Muslim bigotry is nothing new to me, nor is it anything new for the 1 million or so Muslim New Yorkers who know this city as our home. While I found this protest appalling, I will not waver in my belief that it should be allowed to happen. Ours is a free society where the right to peaceful protest is sacred. It does not belong only to those we agree with. It belongs to everyone. I will defend that right every day that I am mayor, even when those protesting say things that I abhor. Let me also be clear about something else. New York City will never tolerate violence, whether from protests or counter-protests. Many of the counter-protesters met this display of bigotry peacefully, with a vision of a city that is welcoming to all. But a few did not. Two men, Amir Balat and Ibrahim Kayumi, traveled from Pennsylvania and attempted to bring violence to New York City. They are suspected of coming here to commit an act of terrorism. There is video of these two individuals throwing two devices towards the protest. The police department has determined that these were improvised explosive devices made to injure, maim, or worse. Thanks to the swift and decisive actions of NYPD officers at the scene, both men were immediately taken into custody, and the devices they brought taken off of our streets. All
right, so this is being reported by The Guardian. It says 2 teens were charged over Islamic State-inspired attack outside Mamdani home. Once again, reading the story here, and this, by the way, is from The Guardian. It says 2 teenagers were charged on Monday with offenses including terrorism and using a weapon of mass destruction after they allegedly threw improvised explosive devices during an anti-Islam demonstration on Saturday outside the residence of New York Mayor Zoran Mamdani. According to a 10-page criminal complaint filed in federal court in the U.S. Southern District of New York, 18-year-old Amir Balat threw the devices at protesters after they were handed to him by Ibrahim Kayumi 19. It said both declared allegiance to the Islamic State terror group. The incident took place on Saturday during an anti-Islam protest by right-wing agitators outside Gracie Mansion on Manhattan's Upper East Side. Mamdani, the city's first Muslim mayor, and his family were not at home. Neither device exploded, and both were made safe by NYPD bomb squad. Now, what was also interesting about this was literally as this was going on, there was a protester. Someone caught this. If you saw a little snippet of this, but there's a protester there that's yelling about how everyone is welcome to New York, and then just as that happened, that's when dude just basically comes over his shoulder and hurls the device. Check it out.
We were born and raised in New York, and we want everyone here to stay in New York. You don't get to come from outside and then tell everyone else.
Yeah, so he's basically saying you don't get to come from outside New York and then tell everyone, and sure enough, here comes dude from outside New York and hurls a bomb at these folks. You know, I have to tell you, and this is something I don't want to put this. See, the thing about the United States of America is we are a place where one of the few places in the world where all religions can live and can coexist peacefully. And by the way, for the most part, have coexisted peacefully for most of our history here in the United States. There are people, and there has been a rise in concern over the role that Islam or some Muslims are playing in our governmental system. And the reason for their concern is part of it is the fundamental teachings of Islam. And you know, I do not claim to be an expert on Islam, but I do know that there is a significant belief in the idea of a theocracy. I do know that for them, government is all the same, whether it's the civil government or your spiritual or your church government, and that they believe that both should be governed by the same exact principles, and that there is no quote unquote separation of church and state. And that part of what they try to do, part of what the goal is that number one, they want to run. Basically, what they want to do is they want to take over the government so that they can then implement Sharia law. Now, once again, I could be 100% wrong. If I'm wrong, please correct me. If y'all out there, please correct me. But that is where a lot of the concern from folks are, because they do not wish us to be or for us to become. They don't want us to become a Muslim state, because part and parcel of the fact that, you know, who we have become as a country is largely based on Judeo-Christian principles and our belief in those principles. And that means, you know, for lack of a better term, individual rights and individual responsibility. And in Islam, they believe in individual responsibility, but they do not believe in individual rights. They believe that they do not believe in. Let me just be real. They just do not believe it. It's not a fundamental part of their teaching. They believe obedience to the Quran, to the Islamic Church state is what it is what is commanded by Allah. If I'm wrong, someone please correct me. But that's my understanding of it. And so there are people who are concerned about that. Now, the folks who were protesting. Let's just say that there are a group of folks who I know some of y'all might like, some of y'all might not like, but all I know is what I see of them is they are not the sort of people that I would wish to be aligned with, shall we say. They're individuals who they see a person who they think is from the Middle East. They will make a lot of assumptions about them. And a lot of those assumptions will be racist. I'm sorry, but that's just who they are. And once again, if you know folks who were in that group, sorry, I don't know what to tell you, but that's my understanding of who they are. But anyway, one of the things that I will credit Mamdani for is that he at least acknowledged they have a right to be there. They have a right to protest. I think protesting outside of people's homes is wrong. I think it's bad. I think you discourage when you do stuff like that. You discourage good people who might want to be in civic leadership. You discourage them because you know the other side's going to do it. You know you're just setting examples of giving them an example of what is acceptable to basically terrorize, for lack of a better term, people by protesting their homes. Anyway, that's once again, I'm just going to say it. That's just how it looks to me. So I at least give them credit for acknowledging that. But the mainstream media, what got me about most of this was you didn't hear about any of this. I mean, why is this not on the front page of the news? If I put it to you this way, if it had been the reverse, if it had been people out there protesting in favor of Islam, and someone came with a explosive device and threw it at a bunch of Muslims, it would have been the leading story in every news report. There's no doubt in my mind it would have been leading everywhere. I mean, you would not be able to turn on the TV and not hear about how the white racists or how the Zionists attempted to kill a group of Muslims who were peacefully exercising their right to free speech. But you didn't hear anything, well, because they were Muslims. In fact, there's been a whole lot of attacks, a whole lot of things that have been taking place in the name of Islam, right? In the name of Islam, by people who claim to be inspired by Islam, by ISIS. A whole lot of attempted acts of violence and acts of violence. And you don't hear anything in the mainstream media about it. And I wonder why that is. You hear about, we hear never endingly about, if anybody dares even, be a Trump supporter and own a gun, that makes every single friggin' news report, right? If you happen to be center right, heck, if you're an advocate for the Chamber of Commerce and you own a gun and you say something and then you're around a group of Muslims or LGBT or a group of liberals, they come after you. The media acts like you are planning an act of war. But in this particular case, almost nothing. You hear almost nothing from the media. And I wonder why that is. Well, we know why it is. Because they don't want to seem racist. And the other thing is that they don't want to give the other side any credit. They don't want to give conservatives any credit. That maybe there is some legitimacy to the fact that when people talk about Islam, they do say that it's not a religion of peace. And all I know is that when I hear about when I hear about every major conflict that is taking place worldwide, how many of the major conflicts taking place worldwide involve a Muslim nation? I'm not going to say every single one. Can I say most? Can I say over 50%? I think that's safe. I think that's a safe number when you think about major conflicts. Anyway, I just think it's something to once again keep in mind. I think that it reveals the bias of the mainstream media, and we all know that the media is biased. We all know that they favor narratives in particular that make the West, particularly the United States, look bad. If they can make America look bad, then that's the narrative that the left and the media is going to go with. I see our friends over at American Crossfire have chimed in. I very much appreciate you tuning in. Always fun to have you. Always fun to have you all on board. But speaking of narratives, you heard early on, I'm pretty sure it was the first weekend of the current skirmish. I don't want to call it a skirmish. It's barely a war because it's pretty darn one-sided, but the entanglement, we'll call it the military entanglement, engagement, whatever you want to call it, that's taking place right now in Iran. One of the early reports was that a school was hit by an attack that was hit by, and they weren't sure if it was Israeli missiles, they weren't sure if it was American missiles. They weren't sure if it was. They weren't sure if it was maybe Iranian, misfire. They weren't sure at all. But, well, it appears, as we look at the live updates from CNN World, it appears as though there appears to be evidence, because right now the U.S. has not ruled out that it was American. So they haven't ruled that out. But they wanted to make sure to investigate before they just jumped out and either blamed somebody else, or before they jumped out and apologized. They wanted to work to make sure what was going on. And, well, according to them, it says footage appears to confirm U.S. airstrike on Iranian base adjacent to Manab School. A newly emerged video appears to show a U.S. airstrike targeting a building at the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps naval base adjacent to an elementary school in Manab, where Iranian state media says more than 160 girls were killed on February 28th. The video, posted to Mer News, a semi-official Iranian news agency, is the first to show missiles striking the area, and adds a body of evidence that appears to contradict claims by U.S. President casting blame on Iran. So here, let me go ahead and see if I can play the video here for you. So that's the video of the strike. Now, it says here, in the footage filmed by a nearby construction site, a munition consistent with the American BMG or UGM-109 Tomahawk land attack missile is seen before it strikes a location beside the IRGC base. The U.S. Navy operates Tomahawks, launching them from its surface ships and submarines. Israel does not operate Tomahawk missile, according to experts. Now, the thing that I want to point out here, and this is the thing that they seem to be ignoring, because here's the thing. They're going to say, well, the U.S. targeted the school. No, the U.S. targeted a military base. Now, if they missed, then they missed. And yes, that is something that we need to own. But the belief, or the thing that the left is out there trying to perpetrate, is that that the U.S. targeted the school. Well, come on now. I mean, I hate to say this, but the only people who the main people who target schools, well, that would be the Iranians, right? That would be Hamas, right? That would be Hezbollah. They're the ones that actually target schools and target hospitals. Either that, or you get what you have in this case, where you have a military base right next to a school. Why would you put a school next to a military base? Why would you do that? Why would you have a military target next to a school if it was not your intent to have something like this happen? And this is what they do. This is, by the way, this is consistent with what you see many of these organizations of these once again, these entities that are, the Islamic State groups, Islamic terrorist groups. That's what you see them doing. You see them using women and children. You see them using hospitals as human shields, using innocent people as human shields. And then when you hit the human shields, they lose their mind. They do. They lose their mind. And they refuse to accept the fact, or not they refuse to accept. The left, here's the thing. The left refuses to accept the fact that this is their goal, right? This is what they're trying to do. They know that they cannot win this war on the battlefield. What they are hoping to do is to win it in the halls of government, in the halls of the American government, in the halls of world governments, right? They're hoping that they can win this war in the media. And it's saying, look, they killed 160 kids. Well, it was not our goal to kill 160 kids. That was not the target. They were not the target, but you put a school right next to what you knew would be a military target. And that's what happened. I think once again, is it regrettable? Yes. Do I believe that we should feel bad about it? Yes. Do I believe we should investigate to find out how it happened, how we missed, what went into us missing so that it doesn't happen again? Yes. Do I believe we owe those families an apology? Yes. I'm sorry. I hate to say we do, but you know what? In military battles, stuff happens. And sadly, when you decide that you are going to put your military assets right next to civilians, sometimes stuff like this is going to happen. Now, I believe that it was not that they were not targeted. I believe that if there's anybody, if we can look at anybody who is at fault, and I use the air quotes for that, those who are at fault are those who decided that they were going to put a military target next to a school or a school next to a military target. If it was not intentional, it was at the very least extremely poor planning. And you should have known that something like this was likely to happen. And I believe they did know that something like this was likely to happen. And I believe that in their eyes, those 160 dead children, dead little girls, in their eyes, that's the feature, not the bug. And that's the way they operate. And if you want to know why, going back to story number 1, why so many Americans do not want us to subject our laws, our government to Islamic rule, it's because that's an example of what you get when you get that. And that's not saying that. I'm not saying that's all Muslims. I'm not saying, let me be very, very clear, because I believe that there are some very, very, very much peace-loving Muslims, but I'm not seeing a lot of that when I read about and I come to understand the Islamic faith. Once again, I wholly admit I could be wrong, but y'all gotta educate me if I'm wrong. I'm not just gonna say I'm wrong just because y'all say I'm wrong. You got to prove it. Anyway, that is that 2 cents. Moving right along. Now I am calling this jury tampering. Right? Let me be very clear. This story they refer to jury nullification, but I specifically believe that this is jury tampering, and this is a story that was put together by the folks over at the Washington Free Beacon. It says here, left-wing activist group teaches liberals how to get through jury selection and vote not guilty on Trump DOJ prosecutions. Recordings show. It says here, a left-wing activist group is teaching liberals in Washington, D.C. and across the United States how to increase their chances of serving as jurors in cases brought by the Trump Department of Justice so they can undermine its chances of securing convictions. Training materials reviewed by the Washington Free Beacon show. Freedom Trainers, whose fiscal sponsor is the George Soros-funded group Community Change, is working to make jury nullification a practice of voting against convictions, against a conviction, even if the defendant broke the law. A go-to legal weapon for the left. Its sessions and training materials reviewed by the Free Beacon show how the group teaches committed people to gum up federal prosecutions. The group tells attendees to keep their addresses current to ensure they receive summons. Then, during the jury selection process, it advises them to never mention jury nullification. Don't signal an agenda and say you'll listen to the evidence before guilty for any reason. So there's an example. It says here, Freedom Trainers' efforts, which have not been previously reported, underscore the difficulty the Trump administration faces in securing convictions in the nation's capital and other blue bastions. Quote, while we respect jurors' role in the judicial process, the department takes jury nullification and interference with official proceedings extremely seriously. A Department of Justice spokeswoman said in a statement to the Free Beacon. Any group attempting to improperly influence juries who should serve as impartial arbiters of evidence should be held accountable. Neither Freedom Trainers nor Community Change responded to requests for comment. And so, yeah, this is a group that, once again, is funded by George Soros. And their whole goal is to, once again, to gum up the process. They don't want justice being done. They don't want people who are guilty of crimes charged by the DOJ, by the federal DOJ. They don't want them convicted. So if you do something, if you do any of these things there in Washington, D.C., what they're doing is you're already likely to get a very left-wing jury, because that's the majority of registrants or people who are registered to vote. That's the majority of the people who live in Washington, D.C. So as a part of that, they're teaching people how to basically how to get on a jury, right? If you want to get on a jury, and by the way, encouraging them to get on a jury, even though they know that they will not be impartial. I got no problem with you encouraging people to get on a jury, but to then encourage them to not be partial, to be partial, to encourage them to lie in order to be on there, in order to be on the jury, y'all don't see a problem with that? Yeah, I most definitely see a problem with that. Anyway, I want to give a shout out, Gordon Hinkle, good friend of mine. I've known him for, almost 30 years. Good follower of the Lord, as well as has worked in politics and political activism. You said, speak the truth. Keep it up, brother. I most definitely will. Gordon, thank you so much for tuning in and for chiming in. But these folks, once again, our jury system depends on people having the ability to go before a non-biased jury of their peers. A group of people who are going to look at the evidence and make a ruling based on the evidence and the law. When you seek to encourage people to get on juries and to be jurists, and you seek to encourage them to do so and not be impartial, that's a problem. That really undermines the entire system, because here's the deal, folks. What if your political enemy does the exact same thing? What if they do the exact same thing? How is justice then done? How do people then get justice? Right? Do we go away from jury trials? Do we eliminate jury trials? I don't know. All I know is this is a dangerous precedent that these folks are doing. And they're, once again, it's all done in an attempt to undermine our system. And you need to understand that. It is not just about advocating for their principles. It's about undermining the entire system. Because here's the deal, folks. And this is where the whole, once again, the Marxism, the neo-Marxism, the cultural Marxism, this is where it all starts. Undermine the validity of the system. Undermine our institutions. Make it so that there's no trust in any of the institutions, so that it all comes crumbling down. And they believe that once it all comes crumbling down, out of the ashes will come this bright new thing that will promote freedom and equity for all. The only problem is it's never, ever, 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 never, 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 ever, 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 never, 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 ever, ever, ever worked out like that. Name one place where it's worked out like that. It ain't worked out not in Cuba, not in Venezuela, not in the Soviet Union, right? Not in China. It's never worked out. Our form of government, a democratic republic, one where we democratically elect our leaders, but we are governed by the law. We are governed by a constitution and the law. No form of government has promoted more prosperity or a greater degree of equality. And when I say equality, I'm more talking prosperous equality, because communism to a certain degree, or socialism, does promote a level of equality, except it's everybody's poor, everybody's broke, everybody's starving, everybody's destitute. as opposed to people being able to go from poverty to wealth within a generation. That's what happens in our free market economy. That's what's available. I'm not saying everybody achieves it, but we definitely you have a greater likelihood of doing it here than anywhere else. But that's not what they want. They want they want more equality. They want everybody to be broke. They want everybody to be poor. They want everybody to be uneducated. They want everybody to be oppressed. I don't understand why. Once again, these concepts that they think that they want, I'm like, where has it worked? To show me where it's worked. It hasn't. But anyway, that there be what they want, and it says sometimes you can't dissuade a dummy from being there. Anyway, Harmeet Dillon is the assistant secretary, or not the assistant attorney general or deputy attorney general. Anyway, she is over the civil rights division. And she is also, as a part of the civil rights division, running a new entity that is overseeing and fighting for our right to keep and bear arms. The sad part is that, and once again, let me before I go into this, let me say, I've known Harmeet for over 20 years, over 25 years. She's been an activist here in California for conservative causes. She is an attorney who has helped sue the left and sue universities and sue governments in order to fight for conservatives to have freedom of speech on college campuses, in order to fight for religious freedom for kids at school. And she is also a proponent of the Second Amendment. Well, he has a desire to kind of show her support for the Second Amendment and show that she really does have an interest in the Second Amendment. She decided to go to the shooting range. And as this is being reported by our friend, Mr. Tom Knighton over at Bearing Arms, says Harmeet Dillon goes to the gun range to a community, shows its butt. Well, what does that mean? It says here, we want more people shooting. We want people in key government roles who are truly pro-gun, who take our gun rights as seriously as we do. So it was with great deal of joy that I saw that Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon went to the gun range this weekend. As the head of the Civil Rights Division, she's been a key ally in taking on oppressive gun control laws at the state and local level. I could make the argument that just about everything we've seen out of the Department of Justice is likely because of her, and she is taking up shooting itself. Then fantastic. I know she went to the gun range because she posted it on X, and here's some of her videos that she shared. Once again, these are videos of her at the gun range. That's her, once again, shooting. I know you guys probably can't hear these videos. Here's some more. She's getting some instruction. So you see right there, she's not just there at the range, but she's actually getting instruction. I don't know. I believe these are the firearms that she in fact owns. And then she shares, kind of her, this was her at 10 yards. She's like, not bad from 10 yards. It could be better. And I think here's the thing. And that's exactly what some folks decided that they were going to point out. It says here, while a lot of people were supportive, a lot of others took issues with her marksmanship not being up to their personal standards. For the record, that wasn't her only target for the day. And those are some of her other targets. Actually, yesterday, 15 yards. Anyway, it says now, Dillon has made no mention of being an experienced shooter. She's not pretending that she's an expert shot or anything like that. She's learning. However, people criticize her for not being an expert was troubling to say the least. No, it might not be a majority, but it doesn't take all that many bad apples to paint the rest of us in a negative light. And, once again, first of all, I do want to acknowledge that there were a lot that, as he noted, there were a lot of people who were supportive and were happy to see her out there. Because I will tell you, there are many people who are affecting policy right now relating to firearms who spend little to no time shooting firearms. And there are many of them that are on our, by the way, let me tell you, there are many of them that are on our side, right? And I need you to understand this. And I'll just say this for myself. A lot of people who know me who are not in the gun rights community, they think I'm a gun nut. And don't get me wrong. I like guns. I like shooting. I own probably more guns than the average Californians, but as many of my Second Amendment community folks will tell you, my gun collection is barely a starter kit for most of y'all. It really is. I won't get into what, where, how many, but trust me, I know folks whose collection far exceeds or would dwarf what I have available. And the amount of time that they spend training and shooting dwarfs the amount of time that I spend training. I would always say that more than being a gun nut, I am a gun policy nut. I follow and I understand the technology largely to the degree that it is affected or changed or that is impacted by law. Because I want to understand I work to understand the technology so that I can understand how the law impacts it. Right? That's not to say that I don't want to be more effective with my firearms. I do. Not to say that I don't want, but understand that not everybody who believes what we believe, not everybody who wants to fight for the right to keep and bear arms is going to be a gun expert. So how about this? Don't get mad. How about this? How about you offer some lessons? How about that? How about you get some of these policy folks, say, hey, why don't you invite them out to the gun range and say, hey, I'm a trainer. Come on out. I'll give you some lessons. I'll give you some pointers. We'll help you get better. Because I promise you they'll come. I promise you I'll come. I want to learn more. I want to be more. And by the way, I've had plenty of trainers invite me to come out. I've flown to different places across the country and taken classes from folks because I want to learn. I want to be a better shooter. But not everybody's going to be like you. Not everybody's going to be as great a shooter as you. Not everybody's going to have as many guns or as cool guns like you have. How about the fact that you have somebody who's affecting policy that affects your rights, that's actually interested in learning? How about that? How about the fact that how about this? How about the fact that there's someone who is spending time learning the laws so that they can protect your rights? I'll tell you where I'd rather have Harmeet Dillon spend. As much as I would love to see her out at the gun range, you know where I'd rather see her? In the law library. I'd rather see her in the courtroom, right? I'd rather see her filing briefs at the courts, going after these folks, fighting for our rights. I'd rather see her in her boss's office, right over there in the DOJ, or over in the ATF's office, undoing a lot of these bad rules. That's where I'd rather see Harmeet Dillon. And I think y'all would agree with me. If you really honestly think about it, that's where you would rather have her be. I'd rather have her be good at the law than good at shooting. Anyway, Tom, thanks for saying something about that. Thanks for reporting on that. I very much appreciate you doing that, dude, because I just think that sometimes we can be very judgy. We can. All of us have the ability to be judgy, right? Like, I'll give you an example. I'm the first guy sometimes to really be judgy about the guy at the gun counter who's giving out advice regarding gun laws, or the cop who makes a mistake when it comes to arresting folks because, he should know the law because he's a cop and he's going to arrest somebody for something that's not even really a crime, right? I can be really judgy about that. But I also have to understand and look at things from the perspective where they are. Look, a cop has to know a whole lot about a lot of different laws, a lot pertaining to his use of force and his ability to do his job, let alone, the intricacies of gun laws. And then the guy at the gun counter, well, shoot, in places like California, you practically have to pass the baby bar in order to be a gun owner, let alone to sell guns. So it can be very confusing. So I try not to be overly judgmental. Well, when you have someone who does know about these laws, who does know and understand and get those laws, right? How about you not be judgmental about, the type of, how good a shot they are or how good of a shooter they are. Instead, maybe help educate them, help them be better shooters, right? Instead of coming down on the dude who maybe doesn't have the expensive gun with all of the bells and whistles that you have on yours, maybe they got a high point, Why not just do this? Why not say, hey, what? Why not teach them how to be the best shooter they can be with that gun? And if there's problems with that gun, help them to understand it and help them get into something better. something safer, right? Whatever it is. But, right? I don't know. I just, Tony Simon actually gave a little spiel about this at the 2A Freedom Fest. And he talked about, 2A bigots. And I got to agree with him, to a certain point, because sometimes we do that. Because people aren't where we are, they don't have the stuff that we have, we can sometimes tend to be judgmental. And then we wonder why they don't listen to us, why they don't come out, why they aren't engaged with us. Well, once again, if someone ain't where you think they should be or you'd like them to be, help them get there, right? Help them get there. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. And thank you, Harmeet, for sharing. Like I said, we're all glad to see that you were out at the gun range. And by the way, if that was her collection of firearms, that's better than most Californians. Much better. That's much more. She owns much more guns than most Californians. Put it that way. Not as many as me, though. All right, folks. So that now brings us to our parting shots. Parting shots are brought to you by Hog Holsters. Go to hogholsters.com. Use the discount code The Rundown. All caps, no spaces, one word. Get your Hog Holster today. All right, these first few parting shots are going to be brought to you by our friends over at the Babylon Bee. Fake news that you can trust. Okay, well, as you know, the war is going well for some, not so well for Iran. It's going well for us, though. But Iran is, let's just say the idea of spin, well, let's just put it this way. they get spin. It says here, Iran boasts it has destroyed hundreds of U.S. missiles with its buildings. Yeah, that's like saying, yeah, I have done tons of damage to his fists with my face. All right. Oh, here's this one right here. Mamdani clarifies that his wife only celebrates terrorism in her capacity as a private citizen. Ah, interesting. Oh, here's one. I didn't even see this one. Mamdani condemns New Yorkers for making Muslims throw bombs at them. Yeah, that's what that whole spiel about these people who are protesting and saying things, and he'll fight for their right to protest. But, anyway, that's kind of his thing. And then finally, Pope condemns Allied forces for not just talking it out with Nazis. That's called irony right there. That's called irony. He's trying to be ironic. Anyway, good stuff over there at the Babylon Bee. Fake news that you can trust. Oh, got one more here. Now this video here, now this was interesting because this just shows kind of some of the hypocrisy of the left and Mr., as I call him, Mr. Adam Schiff for brains.
This statement from the administration: the president had the constitutional authority to direct the use of military force because he could reasonably determine that such use of force was in the national interest. That's too vague for you?
Totally vague.
Okay, because that's from Obama about Libya.
Well,
yeah, he kind of got clowned on that one. Yes. And once again, I'm not going to act like Democrats are the only ones who do this, because we've done this too. Like, for example, I see a lot of Republicans not saying anything about tariffs, even though we've advocated against tariffs in the past. But now all of a sudden they're pro-tariff, or at least some Republicans are pro-tariff. I'm still not pro-tariff. I agree with how the president has implemented them or used them to leverage better deals. That I will agree that he's done a good job with. But overall, tariffs are taxes, and taxes increase costs on consumers. Not a fan of tariffs. Anyway, I try to be consistent. I try to, if I don't like something, I don't care if my guys do it or their guys do it. I try to speak up. Anyway, that brings us to the end of our show. But before we go, we're going to give one more quick shout out to our sponsors. We've got Hitman Industries rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase at hitmanindustries.net. We got the California Republican Assembly, the conscience of the Republican Party. Check them out at cragop.org. We've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market at hogholsters.com. That's HAWG holsters.com. Big Americans wear guns. And then finally, the place where you can find all things tactical except the gun. And that would be at uscombatgear.com. With that, we're going to go ahead and call it a show. We will be back tomorrow on Taco Tuesday. Till then, y'all have fun, stay safe, and we will see you mañana.